Greetings and welcome back to yet another episode of the Daily Run, and today we're playing as Lilith. We're off to a great start here. We don't see anything with the Curse of Darkness and this fogginess of the burning basement, and it's just a combination of curses and the floor that I think makes the game very hard to see. And I've harped on about the Curse of Darkness before, but combine that with the burning basement and just how dark everything is, then you really have a recipe for disaster. Thankfully, if I'm going to have a Curse of Darkness, I would much rather have it on the first floor than any other. Of course, they're not exclusionary, which means that if I get one on the first floor, that doesn't mean that I won't get one later on, but I'm just saying if there is a chance or the opportunity to get the Curse of Darkness, it should be on the first floor, since the floor tends to be much shorter, which means that I have to be exposed to it for a much shorter amount of time than if it just happened anywhere else. And I'm glad that it did, and I'm glad that we got through that. And now we're in a much better position because now, thankfully, at least we can start seeing things. What we got in the very first treasure room was Blue Baby's Only Friend. And it's one of those items which I feel everybody knows it's good, but you never really realize how good it is until you pick it up. It's the same problem like with soy milk. You feel like it's supposed to be better and you just feel like the item is stronger because you have this idea of shooting really fast in mind. But when you pick it up, then you realize it's actually really bad. Well, Blue Baby's Only Friend is kind of a reverse of that. You know that it's good, but until you pick it up and actually start playing with it, you just never realize just how powerful it can really be. And it's just one of those items that can not only carry your run, but really define it until to a certain point. And what makes it so great is not only the ability that you essentially have infinite range with it and you can snipe enemies that are on the other side of the room, but it also has the ability to hit multiple enemies at once, and that just makes it invaluable for dealing and clearing rooms. It just allows you to have a much faster clear rate and just allows you really to go through rooms and essentially one-shot them in some sense, just because of how damage it deals. And it doesn't really fall off that hard as some other familiars do, but it's definitely enough to get to Mom and just really beat her. And then after that, sure, you can start or hope to get some other items which you can rely on. But up until Mom or Womb 1, I would say that this is a solid grade A item which just essentially carries the round for you. The only thing you would need here probably is something like Flight so you can hide, or maybe you would need some HP to get along with that. But besides that, we are really pretty much set. Of course, it helps that we got all of these other crazy good items like the Screw, the Growth Hormones, the Mark. These are all essentially tier A items which just help us deal with enemies a bit faster. And of course, now that we have Blue Baby's Only Friend and we have Succubus and we also have our natural tears which are relatively strong, we can kind of combine all of that to deal with enemies in a very efficient manner. But with this run, I did miss Boss Rush, and it's one of those things which I dislike to admit, but I missed it because I got a bit mind flooded in some sense. I was debating on thinking what I should do in order to maximize my score, and I thought I had a good plan in mind, but then I realized that maybe it's not really gonna work out. And in this case, this particular floor is what caused me so much trouble. First of all, you see I have the blank rune, and now the blank rune can have many uses. Obviously you never know what it's gonna be, so you try to maximize its usage to a room or to a place where it's gonna have the most effect on you. So that means I would much rather use it on the floor where it has the potential to be an AWOS rune, and of course that AWOS rune can then propel me to Womb 1 and really give me the edge over the other players who maybe use the blank rune a bit earlier. It's also a good idea to use it in a position where maybe you can duplicate something if it turns out to be a Yarrow rune, or even better, you can use it in a room where there's an item or maybe even a blood bank, so you can try and bank on the Algiz rune or maybe the Purge rune. So essentially trying to find a combination of runes and just the floor or just the place which is gonna give you the maximum amount of power over that one single use rune, depending on what it is. And in this case, I tried to maybe be a bit cute about it, because I had a Temperance card and I also had the arcade, and there was another blood bank in the arcade. So what I thought it would be a good idea in that situation is to plop my blood bank down, and I was just thinking, should I use my blank rune in case it's an Algiz rune? Because if it's an Algiz rune, that means I can get something like an Ivy bag, and if I get an Ivy bag, that can allow me to really generate a lot of points and a lot of money, and hopefully maybe with that I can go to boss rush and essentially be invincible. So it's one of those short-term strategies which I think would turn out really well for me if other people didn't find a way forward. But then again, if it did turn out to be an AWOS rune, then that's gonna allow me to just get more points via the stage bonus. So I was debating on what I think is maybe more likely to happen, and obviously in this case nothing is more likely to happen because both runes are equally likely to appear. So my next solution or my next idea was, okay, I'm gonna keep the blank rune, I'm gonna hope to find maybe something else on the depths 2 floor, and then I will use my blank rune in hopes of getting something out of it. And of course in this case what ends up happening is I do find another room which has a Yarrow rune, I just draw my blank rune and then I duplicate it, and I definitely think this was the right choice to make, but just because of how maybe involved that decision was, because you can use the Temperance card, you can go to the Secret Room, maybe you can try using the Blank Rune there, maybe you get another one and you can get the Purple Rune, and the Blank Rune is how it works, and just because there's a chance of it always coming back whenever you use it, I just thought that there is maybe some finagling to do with the Blood Banks, and because of that maybe I can increase my chance of getting the Shovel from a Secret Room. So essentially I was just going through all of these possibilities in my mind, and I couldn't really figure out which one is the best. At the end I decided to just stick with the simplest one, the first idea that I had, just stick with it. Hope that it's an AWAS rune, use it to get further, and maybe that's gonna give you the edge that you need. Of course, sadly, what ended up happening is it wasn't an AWAS rune, so I really wasn't able to go forward, and I missed Boss Rush because of it, and it just cost me a lot of points overall, and I feel like I could have done much better, and of course, we're still in a relatively good spot, even though we didn't really get that far, so maybe it's not that bad, but I definitely feel some responsibility for the mistakes that I've made this run, even though it's really hard at the end to find something else, and just destroying the skulls, or maybe finding other alternative ways to go deeper, or maybe just get more points, and sadly I really couldn't finagle that out of this run. I know some people will, I know some people wouldn't, and that's just the nature of Isaac. I hope you enjoyed this one, guys, and I hope to see you next time.